Welcome back to another Dragonflight Alpha video. Today I'm going to take you through the Dracthyr customization. The customization is very interesting. This is one of the most in-depth character creators the World of Warcraft has ever had. The number of options is honestly kind of staggering. It is sheer madness. However, much like with the Oblivion character creator, the more options you give somebody, well, the more potential they have to make something that is truly monstrous, and maybe the harder it is to actually make a character that looks really great. That's always what it's like with super in-depth character creators. So you're going to see a lot of Dracthyr that are basically weird sparkle, sparkle dragons, but I think it's actually possible to make a really cool character, and I really do appreciate the level of depth and the complexity here. Just quickly going through, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tabs of customizations. Over for the... Now, this is the one form. I do think that this form is way more, honestly, way more troublesome. If you don't want body scales, you can actually choose that, which I think is good. But again, there are so many options here that when you randomize them together, it feels like you just put a whole bunch of bits in a blender, in my view. So I think some restraints definitely needed to make the visage form actually look reasonable. Okay, so to take a look at the actual Dracthyr then, we have a lot of options. To start off with the skin color, we have many. But those are all impacted by the body pattern and marking, so I'm just going to set those to none so we can very much see what the base Dracthyr looks like. Again, there are so many things that you can make this kind of horrible soup, or you can make a finely tailored character that looks great. So, with our skin color then, we have many different options. Now, one thing that I know that people were quite frustrated with, and I was as well, actually, it was the body types. You know, they kind of saw this at BlizzCon and thought, what? It's World of Warcraft. Like, why is the dragon less chunky than the dude? Well, finally there is actually an option that has made your Dracthyr hit the gym. So that's definitely a good thing. Come on, it's Blizzard, it's Warcraft. It should be chunky, beefy, and muscly. Okay, there's your skin color. Now, let's go through some of our other ones. Very high saturation. That's a ballsy move, Blizz. Very ballsy move. It does certainly mean that you can have the colors of a PS1 game. I'm talking about Spyro. So that's what those are like. I'm going to go with black. I feel like it's easiest to use black as the base. There are other options, like you could go with a more white base, and then you could set your accent color to strong, and then you could, you know, kind of go through the different accent colors to sort of create, like, you know, other vibes of dragon, which I think totally works. And there's so many different color options here. And being able to choose like different weightings of the accent color, I think is really strong. I'm going to go with this because I like the contrast. But as you can see, there are many, many, many different options here. So if you were to go like that, that's more of a traditional black dragon. There's a kind of a pretty different look that I like because I like the color blue. If you wanted to have a Spyro that looks pretty different and wild, you could actually get a version of that actually starts to look very reasonable. But let's go back to our black dragon, and I think let's go for the blue. So after that, we then go to the face. On the face, there's only 3 faces, but that's kind of misleading because what really matters more here is the snout, where we have 20 snouts. The snout, of course, that really just will change how the character's, like, almost its mood is perceived, right? So 20 options, a hell of a lot to choose from. I think it just does mean that the many different types of dragon that you may want, I'm going to go with Basilisk this time, they can be represented, and you'll see even more of that when we get to a lot of their other customizations. Of course, we're doing a dragon, so having in-depth horns also makes sense. You can have no horns if you want, but past that, there are many, many different horn options. I think probably with the additional things they added to the Draenei, like they've really got used to adding just loads of different horns to their races. So pretty nice that you have so many different options here, including some broken ones. As for what I'm going to go for, I think I'm just going to go for the Scythe one for now. Then you have 15 different horn colors. So, I mean, could you almost make a sort of a fell-looking one with that green? That's kind of interesting. So maybe for this, I'll go with the brighter blue. Actually, maybe that's a bit too bright. Yeah, I'll go for the black horns. Then you can have jewelry on your horns as well. And that's a lot of work, because for every single horn they had to put this jewelry on, so that's just a lot of artist time. I'm going to go for the guard, because I think that can look pretty cool. Now, your jewelry color can also be changed. One bit of feedback I'd have here is I do think it would be nice if we had more color options for those, but I'll go with that one. Now then, ears. We have 12 ears. You can have none, you can have a little nub, So it's kind of representing like the different sort of dragon fantasies, I guess. Natural, notched, wing. Then if you want to be more serpentine, you can go for fins. I really like the fins myself, so I think that's pretty cool. Or you can go for the horns. Now, of course, those additional horns that you add, those will inherit whatever horn color you've selected. So again, that's also pretty damn neat. In this case, I'm going to go for the long fin. You then, for your chest, or your crest even, if I go here, can choose different ones. There is so much. So I think we should maybe keep with being finned if we want that kind of more almost Naga-like look. We can keep that up. For the brow then, right now it's clean, but you can add horns. And again, those are horns that will follow the color rules of the horns you've already put in. If you basically want bones that act as eyebrows, you can do that too. So I'm actually just going to add some little fins there too. Why not? For your cheekbone then, you can also have more. I'll just add some little thorns for the cheekbone. Actually, that's looking a bit too busy. Maybe just some bone. For the throat, I have a small fin. That's where I'm going to keep it. You can have a medium fin, a large fin, also some thorns and spines. The thorns, I believe, also do follow the coloration of your horns. And then in addition to that, we can move on to the eyes, where we can actually choose which eyes we want to have sight in. So that's pretty neat. You can then choose the color of your eyes. I could go with a red there, could go with a green. So lots of different options. Quite nice, high contrast. I think they really do pop. You can have a glow, a cross, or a slit. And then for your face pattern, you can see I have this like little smoky pattern. So I can make that be whatever I want. The smolder actually does impact your shoulders as well. So for this case, I think I could go with none, but then there's a pattern, but then there's also the face markings. So I'll go for truth, and I can maybe put that in with scorch. Okay, and we can change the color of that later. Body size then. I've already went Chad mode with this guy, so I'm going to keep him in Chad mode. We then have got our torso spikes. I think those just help to round out the shoulder. I think they look pretty good. We then have arm spikes. I mean, it is a Blizzard game, so why not add the spikes, in my view? So there they are, some arm spikes. Leg spikes. Hey, Blizzard game. Why not add them? But I'm going to keep them off this time around. We then have our body pattern. So this is just different patterns that you can put on your guy. We've also got our body markings, and for all of those, you can change their color. So I could go for a brighter one, and I could put that on him. I think that these are like a little bit harder to kind of harder to have them not look muddy, I suppose. And of course, this will also impact our facial coloration. So for now, maybe I'll just go for the darker one. With that said, we then have got armor. So these guys do not wear armor because they are so custom, but they do actually have armor available in the character customization. Hopefully Blizzard are able to add more of this over time. I think that would be decently important. I've got to be honest with you, I think the helms look whack. I just don't think they look that good. Other than the Shaco one, which I think is going to work for players who choose not to have, not to have fins, because honestly, this clipping looks ridiculous. It just does not look like a modern game. Whereas if I was to go and, say, remove some of those, go for no ears, then you kind of could have an almost Sathrak-looking kind of guy. Anyway, I'm going to go back to having my fin, and I'm going to remove the helm. For the shoulders, though, you've got a wing, which is just this little decorative thing. I don't think it looks that good in the buff one, to be honest. There's the spalder, though. I can then add in the chest, where we've got regal, we've got scaleborn, and we've got traditional. I prefer traditional. It has a nice flow to it. You can add a breastplate on top of that if you want even more armor, though. There's also upper arms where you can just add these little wings or just some little ram braces. I'm going to go for the wings. For the low arms, you can put a bangle on, and then you do have wing jewelry. I'm going to go for the talon. Now, you can change the color of your armor, which I think is pretty major. So for the waist, you've got regal, you've got scaleborn, you've got traditional. I love how traditional looks, so I'd go for that. With that said, I can then go to the breechcloth. I can also keep it traditional. There are, of course, also regal and scaleborn if you want to keep those armor sets up. For the feet, you've got these talons, which honestly, they look kind of brutal, so I think those are pretty cool. You can just have some anklets, though, which are a bit more understated. For the thighs, then, we can put some armor on, too. I'll just put the tassets on, and there we go. We kind of have an armored dragon. So with all of our different options, you can see, I mean, they really are quite nice as pieces of armor. I think it's pretty neat how they've basically been able to actually have this dragon look armored. Now, with that said, I'm going to show you the other basic sets. So if you want to look more like you're in male armor, then here's the Scaleborn set. You can see the kind of cloth has gone away, and here is it in all of its various different colorations. So I think looking pretty neat. And then if you wanted to go a bit more regal, then here is that set as well. Just kind of looks perhaps a little bit more royal. So I'm going to keep this one on, and I will just set it for now to this color. Now, in addition, for your tail, you've got customization. So here it is bare. You can make it smaller. You can give it a flail, a fin, a heart, a club, a diamond, and a spade. In this case, I think I should go with the fin to kind of keep the serpentine look going. You then also have got your tail ridge, which can be a fin or can be spikes. So that is the creation of the actual Dracthyr. Then we've got the visage form. This one, honestly, I mean, some of these just look whack. They just look completely, completely mad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically remove everything, and we're going to build a character up. Okay, so now it's looking a bit more like a generic elf, which perhaps some people would prefer. Also, I've added eyebrows. Blizzard actually defaults them to having no eyebrows, and I think a lot of people, they don't notice that, but the face looks really off, and then that just feels weird. Now, you do have these kind of crusty scales. To be honest, I'm not super sold on them just yet. I get that they want the visage form to look kind of draconic. I think it looks better in the concept art than it does here, and certainly when you look at dragons within World of Warcraft, they don't all have scales when they're in their visage form. Anyhow, so of course we've got all of the usual skin color options that we're used to. For the face then, we just have a bunch of different faces. Right, get some sort of different characterizations. I'll just keep this one. Hairstyle then, we have a lot. So you can of course go hairless, where you see the funky looking head, which honestly on its own I think does look just really kind of weird. So you can have these pretty cool looking warlocks. You can have Super Scion. I wonder what that's referring to. Actually, if you're going to go Super Saiyan, right, let's add a bright hair, maybe make it be fiery at the top. There you go. You can be one of those vegetable people from the Dragon Ball. Huzzah. All right. So to go through the other ones then, we've got Prince. And I do think that the ability to choose the highlight color is really cool. Obviously, you don't have to, you can't just have regular hair with no highlights if you want. But I think it's a really nice option. I think it looks pretty sweet. So we've got locks, we've got a mohawk, we've got a quiff, we've got spiky, just some sort of tousled hair, the knot, tied back, a top knot. I suppose you could, I don't know, could you kind of look like a Zuko if you wanted with some of those effects, right? Kind of make it a little bit fiery though. Who knows? Nomad, mane, got the braided. So plenty of different hair options that are available to us. I think for this case, I'll just go with Sideswept for now. Actually, screw that, tousled. Now, for the hair color and the highlights, this is really quite strong. So if you want that Wrathion-like look, which maybe that's what we'll go with for this character, you can really get that. And I think that looks cool. If, of course, you want some of that kind of cool blue hair, then hey, get that too. And actually, I think the blue and black looks really cool. But I'll go with the red. Let's kind of go like, well, we'll steal Rathion's hairdo. Actually, I don't think Wrathion has hair like that, but maybe it's a bit more dark iron. There's also hair decorations if you want them. I'm going to keep those off for now. And of course, horns. You are a dragon, so you do get to have horns, and you can change their color. In this case, I'll go with Scythe because that does match what the other, what the actual dragon has. And if I'm going for horns, maybe I'll just go with the larger hair. So the horn color, of course, we can also choose. I'll go with the darker one for now. We then, of course, still have got our horn jewelry. It is the same things that we saw earlier, just that guard seems to be broken. So I'll go for none. There's then a headdress if you want that. Again, so I could go with that, and I could, of course, change its color later. Then there's the scale patterns on your face. Again, I'm just not sure that the blending looks great. I'm not super sure in these. I've seen mixed opinion. I mean, the idea of them is neat. I think it's just hard to get those to blend with the facial appearance that well. You can then change the color of your scales as well. And again, these are ones that I've just struggled to make look good. Who knows? Maybe I'm just a coward when it comes to character customization. Then, of course, eyebrows. Let's give him some eyebrows back. Mustache, only 2 options. Not great, to be honest. For the beard, though, I think I'm just going to go with the goatee. But you can have pointed, you can have full. I'll go with the goatee. But if you go with none, you can actually have like a little dragon chin as well. So anyway, let's do the goatee. Then for eyesight, of course, same options. I'm just going to go with the red so it matches our guy. You've got different ears as well, right? So, we've got the long, we've got the medium, we've got the short. I'll go for medium. You can have earrings if you want those too. And of course, those earrings, I believe here you can also change the color of your jewelry. So for some reason, I don't know, maybe should I go with blue? Who knows? Let's move on. All right. So then you can have a chest strap if you want this for, I don't know, I suppose, kinky reasons. Or maybe storage. Who knows? Anyway, it's a neat enough option. Then for underclothes, you can choose between briefs and you can choose between, I guess that and boxers. There are then, different underclothes colors as well. And then, of course, you can change your character's body scales. Maybe I'll just kind of put those there so he still kind of looks like a dragon. So there you go. That is an example of creating a Dracthyr. And then if you were to swap your body type over, you can really see the same thing going on. Like, it's the same customizations, just, of course, with, same customizations, essentially. So there's no point in kind of exhaustively going through all of that. Suffice to say, though, it's the usual. You've got pretty damn cool hair options, but there are so many things that can be turned on at once. I actually think that this is... Okay, you know what? Fair enough, character creator. You've done a decent enough job at randomizing me something. Right, that character kind of looks like she's, been through the shit, let's just say. Again, like the hair highlights, I think that's a really cool feature. I'll run through the hairstyles, just because that's probably what's like a bit more unique. So there you go. There's really a humongous amount of options here. It does mean that people can definitely make something that looks kind of ridiculous by accident, or, if they just almost get like choice paralysis because so much is offered to them. Next, though, I'm just going to make a few different dragons. So as we go through these randomizers, you can see you can just really see a lot of differences, especially when you look at the face, right? Between all of the different options, you have very different looking silhouettes. I think that is pretty damn neat. So overall, here, that guy actually looks pretty sweet if you want like a red dragon looking character. So I think all of that is pretty damn great. To be honest, the visage form, it's harder to get that to look great, but I do actually think that the Dracthyr themselves, while I was a bit, honestly, a bit suspicious, I was not sold on them originally. I saw that the art director, or one of the art directors from the studio Hi-Rez, they make games like Smite and Paladins, he actually did a draw-over that significantly improved their appearance. I still think that elements of what he included in his draw-over would be welcome here, but... I do at least appreciate that they added in the additional body option to be a bit more buff. At this stage, it would make you feel like this guy could be holding a massive two-handed sword that he could go and clobber some heads with. Now, there is a downside there. Dracthyr can only be evokers. Now, the reason there is kind of multifaceted. They do have some pretty powerful racials that, if combined with another class, would lead to a lot of utility. So I wonder if that would be too powerful with how it's been designed. Additionally then, there's a lot of customizations between these two, and for every single thing that a Dracthyr can be, that adds a humongous, truly, it's hard to appreciate how humongous the number of animations that would add. And while some maybe more modern games could use some animation retargeting and more generic rigs for more efficiency, I don't think that World of Warcraft is there. I think World of Warcraft is in the back end, I think it's more traditional. I don't think that they have the most crazy optimized workflow in the world. I think quite the opposite. I think they are limited by their tech, and that does mean that they have to brute force a hell of a lot of solutions. So if they were to add, say, Paladin to this, they'd have to add a massive number of animations for every single weapon a Paladin can have. They'd have to do those animations for how this body actually looks. And that would just be a lot of work. Now, of course, because this basically is just an elf, you could have him running around as a paladin tomorrow, I would imagine. But then your problem is, what the hell would the Dracthyr form be for? Because making the Dracthyr form be able to be a paladin, that would be the extra work. Ultimately, I hope this is something that in the next expansion Blizzard are able to do, though. I think you could easily add in some lore that the Dracthyr managed to get themselves acquainted with the people of Azeroth and that they actually learn a few of the classes that Azeroth, well, they're Azerothian too, but a few of the classes that the player characters already do inhabit. For now, though, I will say that the Evoker class feels fantastic. Playing a Dracthyr Evoker does feel fantastic. I know that being a mega buff warrior style Draconid is not up everybody's alley. I do think, though, it's a really fun caster spec. Or caster class for both of its specs. Me and Matt have both had very strong opinions on them that are, I think, decently positive, to be honest. So it works right now. It may not work for everybody, but I do think what they've created here is really strong. It just had a particularly weak showing it had a weak showing initially because you didn't have that fourth body option. That meant that it wasn't really in line with a lot of what players had expected. And certainly, like, if I was to just go and make this guy, like, naked, you know, because when you actually put the armor on, it does bulk out the character's frame quite a bit. Hey, it's just like putting on some 90s shoulder pads. But you can certainly see when I take the armor off on body type 1, really does look very just spindly. And I mean, it kind of looks ridiculous that with some of what Blizzard actually showed off on their online event, the dragon looks less buff than the human or the elf sort of visage form. I just think that didn't work. It wasn't the strongest showing. So much better when you hit that. Like, now this guy is carrying a big sword and knocking heads in. So for what they're doing right now, I think this is excellently executed, and it's just really cool. If you wanted a dragon style thing and you're okay with it not being a super buff, big sword wielding like warrior, then this is going to be great for you. What I would say though is, hey Blizz, how about in the next expansion, you add a fifth body option that's a little bit more buff, and then you maybe try to add a few classes to this. I think that would be pretty neat. Because, you know, this could work really well for a rogue character, but if you want a warrior, yeah, you kind of want to be just a brick shithouse, don't you? So there you go, that's a look at the character customization for the Dracthyr. It's some of the most in-depth that we've ever had in World of Warcraft. Blizzard tweeted, I don't know, was it like 80 million different options, or different combinations, and that stuff's literally true. You think about how many there is for each one of these, and then, you know, you do this, times 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 everything in each one of these, times all the things in the visage form, and you are going to get a ginormous number. That is how much customization there is. Okay, that's been it for me. If you want to support the team that makes this content, which is not just me, it's our editors, it's everyone else, covering the thumbnails, the other channels, operations, research. The best way to do that is to head over to our Patreon and consider throwing us some support there. And if you are in the loot tier in Patreon, we've actually got some awesome physical merch every month. We do a new bundle of merch. This time we're kind of theming it off fantasy classes. This month it's machinist. So if you want that kind of like tinkerer, engineer fantasy, that is what we're going to be delivering to you this month. And it's all part of a world that we're trying to build out that's, you know, you'll see the lore at the back of the art cards, and that's something that, let's just say, we may be doing a little bit more with in the future, if you get my drift. Okay, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about the Dracthyr. I'll see you next time.